Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to use an Arduino with an LCD display. I'm also going to show you how to use or how to measure a voltage with the Arduino and then display that voltage on the display. And then I'm also going to show you how to measure a voltage with an Arduino and display it on the computer monitor itself. So the LCD we're going to be using today is this 20x4 LCD. Most people will show you how to use a 16x2, but I'm going to use a 20x4 because it has more spots for more characters. Okay, here's the specs on the display itself. The item number on the left is basically the pin number. So it's 1 through 16. There's 16 pins. And instead of me showing you or talking about or I should say, instead of me running through all these, you can just pause this screenshot if you need to. Okay. Here is the circuit. The LCD is on the bottom, and all the arrows are basically pointing towards the pins on the Arduino. So we have pins 1 through 16. And basically, just as you saw in the spec sheet, the pin 1 is VSS, which would go to the ground on the Arduino. The VDD is pin number 2 on the LCD I'm using. That goes to plus 5 volts. VO is just basically the contrast. So I put that to the center pin of a 10K pot, and either side is going to the Arduino ground and 5 volts. So that way you can adjust the contrast on the display. RS just goes to pin 12, and then RW goes to the ground. Enable E goes to pin 11. The data bus 0 through 7. We're only going to be using 4 of these, so I left 0 through 3 blank. So data bus 4 through 7 goes to pins 5, 4, 3, and 2 on the Arduino. And then finally we have our backlight LEDs. Basically it's LED A and K. That's your backlight power, and that goes to 5 volts and ground, as shown here. Okay, so let's take you over here. And that's actually, I have everything hooked up, just like shown in the circuit on the whiteboard I just showed you. And the first program I'm going to actually show you here is how to clear the LCD display. So here's what I showed you before: LCD RS pin, the digital pin 12 on the Arduino, and so on. This is all the pins I just showed you how to hook it up. Okay, now for the LCD to actually work, you need to include the liquid crystal display library, this is how you do it right here. You also have to initialize the pins for the display, and that's right here. Okay, now we start our program off by doing the void setup. The analog reference is set to default. This basically, some people have actually told me that you actually don't need this line in here, but I'm one of those people who likes to play it safe, so I put it in here anyway. The LCD.begin basically just starts basically tells the program what size display we're using. So we got 20 columns and 4 rows, so that's the size of our display. And then we start our loop here. Now in this particular program where I'm clearing the display, you really don't need to loop it, but I'm using basically the same. I'm going to be using the same code for the next step, so I'm just going to put this loop in here. So it'll just continuously clear it. So in order to clear the display, or write anything for that matter, you do lcd.setCursor, and then the 0, 0 is basically the column and row. And the way the columns and rows work is the columns is 0 through 19, which is 20. And then the rows is 0 through 3, which is basically 4. The next line, after you set your cursor, you set the next line to lcd.print, and then the parenthesis quotation, I put 20 spaces in here because it's a 20 column display, so it's going to basically write a bunch of blanks. So that basically that clears that line. and then the same thing for the next line, I clear that one, the same thing for the rest of the lines. So that's how you clear it. So let's run this. And this is going to clear the display. Alright, everything's clear. And the next step I'm going to show you is how to measure a voltage. Actually, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to measure a voltage first, and then display it to the computer. And then after we display it to the computer, then I'll show you how to write it to the same thing to the display itself. So here we go. We start. This is actually a really short program. I just called it a voltmeter. The integer sense pin is set to the pin number 0, which is basically the analog pin 0. Then you do the void setup. Same thing, analog reference, default. This basically is just like sets everything to the default for your voltage reference. Serial.begin 9600. This is basically setting your baud rate. Because we're actually going to be monitoring the USB, we need to have a speed. So we set the baud rate to 9600. Then we do our loop. This is, like I said, this is a real simple program. In the loop, you do serial.println, analog read sense pin, and this actually is the reason why I set this here. I'll show you in a minute. Okay, the number here is originally the number I originally picked here was 204.8. The reason why I'm dividing by 204.8 is because basically the analog pins on the Arduino have 1024 bits of resolution. So basically 0 to 5 volts is what it's going to be reading, but instead of actually outputting, let's say if you have 5 volts there, it won't output 5 volts. It's going to put it's between 0 and 1023. So if you have 5 volts, it'll be 1023. It'll display on the monitor. So in order to actually get a voltage reading, 1024 divided by 5 is 204.8. So this allows us to actually see an actual voltage. But the reason why I changed it to 238 is because if you, when I was actually measuring it before, the precision wasn't quite, the exact voltage I was looking for. So in order to adjust the precision or tolerance, 238 seems to work better. It basically matches it up with my voltmeter. So let's run this. Alright, now that's running. Everything's good. You can see the I'm using the Arduino Mega. You can actually use the Uno or some of the other ones too, but I'm just using the Mega. That's the one I seem to use the most. Okay, now you can see here's the power supply I have hooked up to analog pin 0, and I also have the meter measuring, and right now you can see it's set to 0 volts. So let's go up here to Tools and Serial Monitor. You can see it says 0 volts. So let's change the voltage. Alright, we got 3.04, and on the monitor now you can see it's measuring the same thing. And also, I forgot to mention in the program, I also have a delay here because this is a loop, so it's going to keep on going through. So I have a delay of half a second. So let's monitor this again. And you can see that every half second it displays a new row of the voltage. And I'm gonna go change this again. So you can see the voltage changing whenever I adjust the voltage on the power supply. So that's basically how you monitor the voltage on the computer monitor. Now let's show you how to measure it and monitor it on the LCD itself. There's another program here. It's basically like the first program I showed you. So everything here is the same. This is all the same, except I added these lines right here. The sense pin is still 0, but I added another integer timer, I called it. I just named it timer. I'll show you in a minute. So here's the void setup, everything's the same. I set the timer equal to 0, which means the integer is actually set to 0. And then here's the same loop I had before. But this time, I just clear the first line. And then I set the cursor again to the first line again. And then I basically print these words here, voltage reading. Then I set the cursor to the next line, clear it, set it to that line again, and then do the analog read. And I already have it set to the number that seems to work best. Then I LCD print again, and since I'm not setting the cursor, this print will display this V right after this gets displayed. And this is basically displaying on since it's saying LCD print, it's actually displaying this on the display. And then after that is going to say V for volts. Then I delay it. I delay it by 1 second. Move to the next line. I write time elapsed. Right to the next line. And here's where I put the timer. The first time around, this timer is going to be 0 because I set it to 0 up top here. And then I display seconds after that. And then I say timer equals timer plus 1. And the reason why I do that is because each time it goes through this loop, this delay right here is 1 second. So this increments the timer by 1 second. And each time this timer in here will be displayed as another second. So let's run this. There you go. Voltage reading and the time elapsed. Matches up with my meter. And everything is running pretty smoothly, pretty accurate. So that's pretty much all I had to show you today. And thanks for watching.